The show opens with a young boy named Linus Hoban, who stands gazing up at the sky, singing a playful rhyme. He calls out to his mother, Karina Hoban, excitedly telling her that he has spotted some lights in the sky. Linus eagerly asks if those lights might be transporters bringing new settlers from Earth to their new home, Carpathia. Mitchell Hoban, the head of the Expeditionaries who is responsible for researching the planet and its resources, approaches the outpost on Carpathia called Forthaven. As he arrives at Forthaven, he is met by Richard Tate, the president of the colony, and Dr. Stella Isen, who is in charge of protection and security. Mitchell is informed of a new rule banning weapons in Forthaven. Though he's hesitant, Richard and Stella insist he follow it. As they discuss this, Richard gets a signal from a transporter and rushes to the communication room. Stella leaves, telling Mitchell to check his weapons. In the communication room, Richard Tate briefly talks with Captain Kellerman commanding Transporter CT-9. Kellerman outlines the ship's issues, and Richard advises him to fix them before ending the call. Meanwhile, Mitchell makes a visit to his home to see his wife, Karina, and their son, Linus. Linus eagerly greets his father, but Karina seems a bit distant as she talks with Mitchell. Later, Mitchell discovers that Karina has been secretly spying on him. He reassures her that all his actions are for Linus's benefit, and urges her to trust him. He also suggests that she consider settling on another place to ensure their safety and well-being. Karina then expresses her sadness about leaving Forthaven and her friends, stating that she will always act in what she believes is best for Linus before heading off to her shift. After she leaves, Mitchell searches the room and finds a report indicating that he has been diagnosed with multiple behavior disorders. Later, a PASS officer, Cass Cromwell, visits Stella's office for an update on the transporter. Stella reports the issues but remains hopeful about its successful landing on Carpathia. Outside, while Karina and PASS officer Fleur Morgan chat, they spot two boys dealing drugs. The boys flee as they approach them, and during the pursuit, a whiteout hits. After the whiteout, Karina tries to get up, but she is violently attacked and loses consciousness before Fleur can reach her. Shortly after, Stella reports the incident to Richard, who learns that there are two suspects, Tipper Malone, an anti-authoritarian black marketeer, and Mitchell. They are working to locate both individuals. Additionally, they notify Linus's school to ensure his safety. The team quickly capture Tipper and begin questioning him. Stella takes him to the deep brain visualization room to help him prove his innocence. After the session, it is confirmed that Tipper is not involved in the incident. Afterwards, Richard reconnects with Captain Kellerman, who reports that passengers are anxious about the craft's problems. Richard addresses them, sharing his Carpathia experience and the planet's name origin, which honors a rescue ship. His speech reassures and inspires the passengers, who respond with applause. The PASS team searches for Mitchell. Fleur updates Cass, who doubts Mitchell's involvement, citing his past good deeds. However, they visit Mitchell's workplace and meet Jack Holt, an expeditionary, who warns of potential conflict if they detain Mitchell. Fleur insists on justice for Karina. Afterward, Jack informs Mitchell, who soon leaves to handle his own matters. Following this, Richard checks in with Captain Kellerman, who reports that the passengers are responding well to his reassurance. Kellerman notes that there are poets and climatologists on board. Richard inquires if Daniel and Lily, Stella's family, are among them. Meanwhile, Stella uses the DBV machine to revisit happy memories of her family. Later, Mitchell confronts Richard at Forthaven about his plan to build a new residence. The argument escalates, and Mitchell chokes Richard. Cass arrives, tries to arrest Mitchell, but Mitchell escapes, killing an officer in the process. Mitchell arrives at the school with a gun, aiming to take Linus with him. When Cass checks on Linus and the teacher, he finds Linus has already been taken. Cass and Fleur search for Mitchell at the base but find him missing. Jack warns them to stay away, and then goes to Mitchell. Jack advises against proceeding with Mitchell's plan, but Mitchell dismisses his advice. After meeting Mitchell, Jack returns to Forthaven to update Fleur on Mitchell's location. Cass and Fleur then head out to find him. Stella tells Richard about the situation, and he worries that his team could be in danger. Stella reassures him that they can handle it, and advises him to rest. While hiking up the hill, Cass slips and loses his kit. As night falls, he and Fleur take a break to eat and reminisce about their arrival. Fleur hears noises, causing concern, and they start setting up camp. Later, Stella meets Tipper at a bar, and they decide to go somewhere else and leave together. At Forthaven, Richard and Captain Kellerman chat, Kellerman reveals he's single, and Richard shares that he came to Carpathia with his family, but lost his wife and children to a disease called C23. Kellerman quickly finishes the conversation to attend to his shift. At night, Cass and Flora are disturbed by a noise and are dragged out of their tents by a mysterious creature. Meanwhile, Mitchell struggles to smother Linus at his camp by a lake. The next day, Stella tells Richard about the events and a vision of her husband during the DBV session. Richard reveals that Lily is on board, but her husband isn't. Captain Kellerman then reports that the transporter will arrive in an hour, and they hurry to the communication room. Soon, the captain reports signal irregularities before the connection is lost. When re-established, he thanks Richard for his support, but then the connection cuts out again, followed by a massive explosion, causing Stella to panic about her daughter. Meanwhile, Cass and Flora find Mitchell, and during their confrontation, Flora shoots him after he insults Forthaven. They see the transporter's explosion but focus on their mission. Flora wakes Linus to take him with them, while Cass buries Mitchell in the sand. At Forthaven, Stella learns about some survivors, though their names aren't yet known, and is also updated on the climatologist boarding from Earth's evacuation program. As Cass and Flora return with Linus, he sees the burning craft and begins singing the same rhyme he sang earlier to welcome the transporter. In the next scene, Flora sits beside the deceased Karina, recounting how she shot Mitchell and brought Linus back safely. Richard interrupts, and they leave together. Flora tells Richard about the mysterious creature they saw, and he suggests asking Jack to investigate while focusing on the missing transporter. Meanwhile, Lily exits the wrecked transporter and is soon found by the advanced cultivars, whom Richard had targeted but Mitchell didn't fully eliminate. The ACs take Lily to a cave, where she finds a sick baby. Rudy, the AC leader, tells Lily she must find treatment for the baby or face severe consequences. Later, Rudy informs Lily that they are waiting for someone searching for her, and that those person will help cure the baby. A group of survivors arrives at Forthaven, but one shuttle is still missing. Stella watches the newcomers, hoping to see her daughter. Jack questions Cass about Mitchell's fate, but Cass denies involvement and leaves. In Richard's office, Julius Berger, former vice president of the Earth Evacuation Program, reviews a child's drawing and comments on Richard's unexpected role in Carpathia. Julius invites Richard to a Thanksgiving service for the survivors, but Richard declines, citing the need to remain available due to the missing shuttle. Later, the team finally locate the missing shuttle. Stella wants to join the search team, but Richard prevents her, concerned about her emotional state if she does not find her daughter on the shuttle. Instead, he assigns Cass and Fleur to the search team. Before they depart, Cass promises Stella that he will bring Lily back safely if she is found. They then join Jack's search team and head out to locate the missing shuttle. Back in Stella's office, a young girl named Aisling Burrows arrives to see her. Aisling explains that Julius Berger took her mother's place on the survival shuttle, used her mother's pass, and got into the evacuation zone. She is seeking justice for her mother and asks Stella for help. Stella decides to confront Julius directly about his place on the shuttle. Julius responds by saying that a friend gave him the pass, claiming that his life was considered more valuable than Aisling's mother's. Stella ends the questioning, remembering her own daughter, and invites Julius to come to her office if he has any more information to share. As Stella leaves, Julius contacts someone at his desk to inquire about Aisling's whereabouts. Meanwhile, the search team arrives at the crashed shuttle but finds that the bodies have been stripped and arranged by size, suggesting someone had been there before them. As they discuss their next steps, Rudy approaches and inquires about Mitchell's death. Cass and Flora do not recognize him, but Jack does. Jack asks about Rudy's other men, but Rudy does not provide a clear answer. Rudy then reveals that there is a survivor. Cass requests to see the survivor, but Rudy agrees only if they follow his instructions. He explains that a baby is ill and demands that they help the baby in exchange for Lily's safe return. Rudy insists that they drop their weapons to ensure they can save Lily. Cass, Flora, and Jack comply and place their weapons on the ground. While wandering the streets of Carpathia, Aisling encounters Tipper. He tells her that he witnessed the transporter explode and describes it as a firework. Aisling mentions that Aisling's mother was on board, and Tipper apologizes. Curious about his work, Aisling follows Tipper to his room, where they spend time talking about their final days on Earth. As Tipper gets distracted searching through a rack, Aisling quickly grabs a tool from the table and leaves the room. Tipper notices her departure and rushes after her. As Rudy leads them to the cave where Lily is being held, Jack explains to Cass and Flora about the advanced cultivars. He describes how they were originally colonized, later executed by Richard, and how Mitchell had saved some of them. Cass advises Flora not to trust Rudy, and suggests they switch one of their team members in order to rescue Lily. Flora confirms that the girl is indeed Lily, and Cass proposes swapping one of them for Lily as a hostage. Rudy then insists that he needs the baby to be in good health, and demands a meeting with Richard. Back at Forthaven, Julius visits Stella in her office. When she questions him about why his husband was not on the transporter, Julius explains that he had a spot, but gave it up for their daughter. Regarding the allegations against him, Stella proposes using the DBV machine to question him, but Julius refuses, arguing that it is not appropriate for one person to access another's mind. He adds that even Richard would not grant her permission, implying that her investigation has reached its limits. Later, Stella asks Richard for permission to use the DBV machine on Julius, but he denies her request. Next, as Julius is attending the prayer meeting, Aisling arrives with a tool in her hand, intending to kill him. However, Tipper intervenes just in time, stopping Aisling and taking her away. Conversely, Rudy hands the baby to Flora, instructing her to take the infant to Forthaven. He also tells that she call Richard to meet him at the same location for a conversation. At the same time, as Lily emerges from the cave, feeling thirsty, Jack offers to get her some water. He goes to one of Rudy's men to fetch it, but the man demands Jack's family ring in exchange. This request angers Jack, leading to a fight. Seizing the opportunity, Lily attempts to escape but is caught by Rudy's man at the edge of a cliff, with no path forward. When Lily is brought back, Cass persuades Jack to give up the ring. Despite this, the man strikes Jack with a piece of wood, knocking him to the ground. At Forthaven, the baby is being treated in an incubator. Flora informs Richard that saving the baby is crucial for their team's survival, and that the ACs are now armed. Richard relays this information to Stella, noting that while Lily is still alive, she is in the hands of the ACs. The doctors report that the baby has pneumonia. As they discuss the situation, Stella and Richard approach Flora. Flora questions Richard about whether he ordered the executions of the ACs, and Richard confirms it, leaving Flora in shock. Richard explains that he executed the ACs because they were searching for genetic patterns to help his colony survive in Carpathia, and he believed they were responsible for C-23. He then invites Flora to accompany him to a meeting with Rudy, and she agrees. Richard and Flora meet Rudy in the forest. Richard hopes to resolve their issues and move forward together, but Rudy has different plans. Instead of working together, Rudy wants to seek revenge and destroy everything that Forthaven has built. Richard accuses Rudy and his group of spreading the virus, but Rudy denies this. He argues that there are still many unknown dangers in Carpathia, and that they cannot be certain the mysterious creatures won't strike again. At the end of their discussion, Rudy tells Flora to return the baby herself if she wants to ensure the safe return of the hostages. Back at his office, Richard is reviewing some documents when he notices the drawing on his table moving, which leads him to ponder Rudy's words. Meanwhile, Stella is caring for the baby when Tipper arrives with Aisling, and hands her over to Stella. Tipper informs Stella about Julius's treatment of Aisling, prompting Stella to use the deep brain visualization machine to uncover Aisling's experiences. After the session, Stella confronts Julius about his actions, but he responds by recounting his own story. Before leaving, Stella warns Julius to stay away from Aisling to protect his reputation, and asserts that she will ensure Aisling's safety. At night, Stella continues to care for the baby, hoping for her daughter's safe return. Richard arrives and questions how the ACs are able to reproduce despite hormonal modifications, noting that reproduction rates are declining in Richard's colony. Stella, however, does not give much attention to this issue. The next morning, Flora and Stella find that Richard has taken the baby for cell samples. Flora takes the baby to Rudy in exchange for her team and Lily. Rudy's men deliver the hostages, but Jack and Lily worry about Rudy's intentions. Jack attacks Rudy's men, leading to a fight where Cass kills one man and retrieves Jack's family ring. Back at Forthaven, Stella reunites with Lily, who is upset and feels abandoned. Cass expresses his unease about killing, but Richard advises him to focus on the positives. Richard and Stella discuss the colony's declining reproduction rates and the baby's potential role in their future. Richard plans to return the baby and seek peace with the ACs. Later, Julius finds Aisling at a bar and suggests they move to a more private place, but she refuses. Reflecting on her recent experiences, Aisling decides she wants to start fresh. She confronts Julius about his involvement in her mother's death, but Julius, angered by the question, storms out of the bar. Early the next morning, Flora prepares to return the baby to Rudy by herself. She places the baby in a bag and ventures into the forest. Upon hearing this, Cass expresses his frustration to Richard, but Richard reassures him and tells him to calm down. At breakfast, Julius approaches Stella and mentions that Professor Rosen, the Nobel Prize-winning astroclimatologist who died on the transporter, had given his wife some research notes about the whiteouts. As he earns her trust with his conversation, Julius asks Stella for a second chance in Carpathia. While in the forest, Rudy sees signs of an impending disaster. Flora, while removing the baby from her bag, realizes she is surrounded by Rudy's men. Rudy takes the baby and asks Flora to stay behind to talk. He explains how he survived and reveals that Mitchell spared them despite Richard's orders. Rudy warns of an approaching whiteout and offers to guide Flora to safety, mentioning his own adaptation to the whiteouts. After ensuring Flora is safe, he tells her to signal him with a flare whenever she wants to talk. Meanwhile, Cass meets Trix, a nurse who is about to get married, and they briefly chat before going their separate ways. At the Forthaven, Stella studies the research notes but finds the equations difficult to understand, as she is a neurologist, not a mathematician. She and Richard decide to ask Tipper for help with interpreting the equations. Cass goes to find Tipper, who is initially reluctant but agrees to help when he learns it concerns the future of Carpathia. As Tipper starts working, he remembers his sisters, whom he left behind because they were not as skilled as he was. Stella urges him to focus on the task, and he asks Cass to bring him some food. When Cass delivers the food, Tipper insults him, calling him a brutal thug for killing a man. This upsets Cass, who nearly attacks Tipper but manages to restrain himself. Tipper, distressed, locks himself in a room and begins to share his memories with his sisters over the radio. Trix and Cass find him and try to bring him back to Forthaven. Tipper then demands to see his sister once he finishes his work. Later, Julius talks to Lily, encouraging her to reconcile with her mother. Lily then goes to Forthaven to visit Stella, explaining that Julius urged her to make amends. Meanwhile, Trix's fiancé, Leon, is busy working on plans to maintain Carpathia's communication infrastructure. Richard steps outside Forthaven and notices a cup belonging to his child. When Jack approaches, Richard mentions finding the cup but seems to be holding nothing in his hands. Then they see Leon and Grant, one of his friends, are on their way to repair the communication systems, but Richard insists they return quickly. Later, Jack warns Richard about signs of an impending catastrophe, prompting Richard to declare a lockdown in the streets. After Tipper analyzes Rosen's data, it becomes clear that the upcoming whiteouts will be far worse than any they've encountered before. Stella orders that her daughter be brought back to the facility and tightens the lockdown to protect the citizens. As Richard prepares to address the public, Julius also requests to speak to them. Later, Julius safely escorts Lily back to Forthaven. While Richard delivers a safety message to the people, Julius leads a televised prayer. Meanwhile, Fleur returns to the streets of Carpathia. At the same time, Grant and Leon are working on the communication infrastructure. The worsening weather causes a thunderbolt to strike a large section of the infrastructure, causing it to collapse onto Grant, who is now trapped. Leon tries to help but is unsuccessful. Back in the streets, Trix expresses her concern about Leon to Cass. Cass decides to check on the repair team. As Cass heads toward the infrastructure, the whiteouts begin, hitting the streets of Carpathia. Cass finds Leon trying to assist Grant as the storm grows more severe. Cass urges Leon to save himself for Trix's sake, but Leon refuses to leave Grant behind. Despite Leon's reluctance, Cass pulls him away, and both men try to find shelter. Unfortunately, before they can reach safety, the storm overwhelms them, causing them to collapse. As the storm intensifies, battering the streets, Stella and Lily discuss Lily's father's wish to come to the planet and witness the unfolding events. Meanwhile, Rudy finds Cass and Leon unconscious in the storm and takes them to a shelter. The following morning, Grant is found dead in the infrastructure, having succumbed to the storm. When Cass regains consciousness, Rudy threatens him by stepping on his neck but ultimately decides to let him go because he heard Cass whisper Fleur's name. Fleur, realizing Cass is missing, rushes to find him. As she prepares to leave, she sees Cass returning with the injured Leon. Later, Richard discusses with Stella his plan to be transparent about the ACs. Stella agrees with no objections. Richard then reveals the truth about the ACs to the citizens. Leon and Trix celebrate their wedding, and afterwards, Stella takes Tipper to a DBV session to revisit his memories with his sisters. Richard also offers Julius a position on the General Council, which Julius accepts with a sinister smile. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.